Hello everyone, I'm Naguura and today I have another M Plus Bootcamp for you. This time around we talked about add-ons and about UIs and I had Nnoggie as a guest. Nnoggie is the creator of MDT, so the dungeon tool where you can figure out your routes and stuff, the add-on that I'm sure most of you have been using if you're an M Plus player. And obviously he's very knowledgeable about this, so we had conversations about different kinds of add-ons, about UI elements, what are the most important add-ons, which add-ons should you maybe look into it a little bit more and understand them better to be able to do basic changes to them when you're installing Naguura packs or installing other people's UIs to get a little bit of a basic idea, and just general things that are possible that maybe a lot of you don't know that you can do with add-ons. I thought it was super interesting. We also went through some dungeons, and Nnoggie being a high-end plus player himself, he looked at my UI, told me some things that he liked, some things that he maybe didn't like, that he would change and move around. And I thought it was super, super insightful. And I hope that you guys can take away a thing or two from this episode and enjoy. Alright, so I just explained to everyone that we're going to be talking about add-ons and UI and all that sort of stuff. So I was thinking that we maybe just have a little bit of a general talk first. I'm just gonna ask you some questions and you give me your opinions about stuff. And then afterwards, maybe I do a dungeon or two, since you've been doing high keys too this season, right?
Yeah, I've been playing quite a bit on my DK and now finally found a team actually, but we haven't been playing that much lately, but yeah.
Oh, you actually got a proper team. That's very cool. Because you're pugging a lot, right? I see you in the LFG tool a lot.
Yeah, I've been basically 3.8 with only pugging no voice.
Yeah, same.
And now I started to see issues there, so I wanted to just try with a team and voice, and yeah, we've been trying to form one for a while, and now we start.
But moving on to add-ons a little bit and UI, since that's why you're here. First of all, Nnoggie, can you introduce yourself? And obviously, since you're joining the M Plus Bootcamp, we need to know if you're experienced enough and knowledgeable enough to be a coach, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about your history in World of Warcraft and what you do?
Yeah, so my World of Warcraft journey began a really long time ago. I've been playing since the game was in beta in EU actually. So I've been playing for a very long time, and competitively I would say I've been playing since the end of Mists of Pandaria. That's where I started joining various high-end guilds, and in Warlords of Draenor I started raiding for a little bit in Method, but then in Rapid Eye Movement with Scribe and all of those people in Revis, and since then been playing in basically that guild, which has been Method and Echo, all of that.
Thanks.
Nowadays I don't raid Westwood first anymore because kind of done with it, done that for 10 years, and yeah, I'm now doing analyst work in Method, so a little bit more in the background, a little bit less workload. And on the side, I have developed a lot of different Naguuras and stuff over the years, and the big one, obviously, Mythic Dungeon Tools, that's mine. And yeah, I think I'm qualified enough to talk about add-ons in that regard, but obviously always open to any suggestions for MDT as well, obviously from reviewers as well. I always hear a lot of things, why doesn't MDT do this? So for example, in the past few weeks or past few months, I've implemented a new feature actually, which we're going to talk later about, which came actually from the chat of someone else. So yeah,
That's very cool. Okay, well, you know what I'm thinking? I think I'm going to let this slide. I think you are going to be an eligible coach, guys. What do you think, chat? Do you think we're allowing Nnoggie to be here? All right, cool. Okay, so generally about... Oh my god, there's just so much to talk about. Is there something that you think makes sense to talk about first when it comes to add-ons and UIs?
Oof, so add-ons and UIs, especially when talking about M Plus specifically, it's an endless pit.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing that we should maybe talk about is how needed is it actually? Is it really that important? And because I feel like a lot of the times when I see people's UI, I watch a lot of streamers play M+, because I'm always on the hunt for new tactics and whatever. And when I see their UIs, I'm like, oh, this looks like they just installed something and they didn't think about it. And there's such a thing as information overload, which I've learned over the years, and I think it's a big problem. And one thing that I want to talk about is that if you use a lot of add-ons and recurs and whatever, sometimes it can just be too much information at once. And sometimes the best thing to do to UI is to just remove something, which I've been doing a lot over the years. So that's one specific example of this is nameplates. So I play a class that applies a lot of debuffs to enemies, which is Unholy Decay, and I think Boomy does this as well. Like maybe something like Affliction Warlock. Like a lot of classes apply a lot of debuffs to enemies, and on nameplates, especially on Blizzard default nameplates and a lot of add-ons, they're all there on their nameplates, and that is just too much information. For example, there is a talent for Unholy which gives me the diseases of the two other specs, so the Frost disease and the Blood disease, and then I see 3 diseases, but you only ever refresh on one of them when one runs out. So I just remove 2 of them from my nameplates, and then it's instantly clean. And then stuff like that is like something that's in my opinion really important to realize, that it's like, this information right there, that's just not something I need. Because if you have like 10 debuffs there and you only care about 2 of them, then your brain does like a thing where it's like, there's so many things, I can't even get the information, I don't care about any of it. Right? Yeah. That's obviously not good.
Yeah, that's a good point with the information overload. That's also something that I always told people when when a new patch comes out and people are getting a bunch of weakers and a bunch of stuff. I always tell people to first thing, like, better to not see something than to see too much. Because if you do like a boss fight or whatever and there was information that you were lacking, then you can always edit afterwards and see, okay, so this weaker that I deleted, it turns out I actually would like to see this after all. So I think that is better than having too much, because then, as you said, like, your brain at some point like just doesn't see it anymore. Because if there's so much useless information that is not important to you, then your brain will think that all of the weakers that are popping up are useless and just doesn't really register them anymore. And one of the cool things, or one of the best examples I saw like some time ago was, I don't remember like who it was, and I also don't want to name like any names, but there's a streamer and everyone's like making fun of the person because they had died to something that seemed very obvious. So they got a debuff on a boss fight and they had to go out with the debuff, but they didn't see it and they killed the whole raid. And the debuff that they had on them, they literally had 3 different weakeras telling them that they had the debuff on them in 3 different positions, and they didn't see it. And then everyone was making fun of them. It's like, oh my god, the clip was shared everywhere, and the people were pointing out like in all of these different locations where the weaker was showing. It's like, oh my god, look at this dumb player. Like, they didn't see the debuff even though they had like 3 weakers, right? And then I was like, well, that's the reason why. Like, the reason why they didn't see it, because they had 3 different weakers in 3 different positions with 3 different sounds, and they just didn't register it. And the same goes with nameplates, as you said as well. So let's say you're a new player, like actually completely new, and you have the basic UI. What kind of add-ons do you think make sense for like a new player that wants to actually become like an M+ player? What add-ons should they be getting at first? And like, which ones do you think are necessary? Which ones are nice to have? And then on top of that, do you think it would make sense to just like get a complete UI from somebody as a first thing? Or do you think it would make sense for somebody to literally just get add-ons individually and set them up themselves and learn how they work?
I mean, I might be shooting myself in the foot here today, but as a new player, I wouldn't recommend getting a complete UI replacement. All the streamers are gonna be like, but
except mine.
UI. Except mine. No, but seriously, I think as a completely new player, there is so many things you want to learn about the game that are right there, and you don't even need add-ons for it. Just learning to play your class, for example, that is very, very important. Like we said earlier about the season, like, it's super important to know how to play your class. And just installing a whole UI suite, like, it doesn't really give you that insight, let's say. So I think, one of the big add-ons is like, if somebody else links your route and you cannot click it, you know, MDT is kind of cool for that. But yeah, I mean, you don't need a whole UI replacement. Like if you get accustomed to the WoW UI, and nowadays you can move things around, like your unit frames and everything, and learn your spells. I don't think the cooldown manager is up to par yet. Like they need to improve that thing quite a lot. Mm-hmm. So what I've done in the past for a very long time, up to like Dragonflight, is I didn't actually use weak auras to track my spells. I just moved a bar and made it a 5x5 or like 6x6 in the middle, and that was basically my weak auras, and I just dragged spells in. I've done that for a very, very long time. Only recent thing that I have like a full weak aura replacement. Because what I think is important, and what a lot of weak auras haven't done for a very long time, is I give you this visual feedback of you pressing the button. There's like a little animation and the button lights up.
Yeah.
And I think, especially when you're learning the class, that's like important to know, okay, what button am I actually pressing and how does it behave? Where's the GCD right now? It's still a lot of weak aura packs, they don't give you that. And to me, that is always like an analogy of like, yeah, you're just driving the car blind. I don't know, it's just, you don't see what's happening with the game. And so for a lot of people, I think just using the action bars and making a little 6x6 blocks, 6x6 block and putting it into the middle of your screen, that's good enough. Like just using the edit mode.
Yeah, that's
like
actually...
to start out.
That's something I always do, like in beta or PTR, whenever there's no add-ons that you can have, then that's also what I do. And I guess in other games like FF14 or something, that you'd be doing something very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing I guess that I think is also true, I think this is even true for players that have been playing for a long time, not just new players, but and this, I'm sure this happens to me as well. Like I think that the more add-ons you use, especially like if you use them at the very start as a new player or at the very start of a new patch, I feel like you almost get like animation blindness. Like you just look less at what the mobs are doing and what the animations look like, because you're so reliant on, oh, if something important happens, I will have a weak aura anyway that pops up somewhere. So I don't actually need to see what the mobs are doing. And that's a problem though, when a new raid comes out and a new dungeon comes out and you don't have your weak aura set up already, right? And if you have this kind of like quote unquote blindness, then it's gonna be hard for you to learn the new dungeons. And a player that does not have a lot of add-ons, or maybe at least got started playing without add-ons initially, they will get a little bit of an understanding of what to look out for, right? Obviously, paddles on the floor are something that everyone will see almost always, because we don't have weak auras for that, because it's like RNG. But we will still, like, there's still animations that a lot of people don't see. Like, if a mob looks at you and like casts something at you, or if a mob starts glowing, or your character starts glowing because you have a debuff on you, like stuff like that, I feel like a lot of people just don't see anymore nowadays.
Yeah. Back to the question as well, I think like which add-ons are like you should install immediately. I think one thing where the WoW UI has a very big shortcoming is actually nameplates.
Yeah.
And from the recent interviews, I think they want to improve that. But the current situation, especially, it's very obvious when you watch the MDI. It's just the nameplates, like you cannot see what's happening on Blizzard nameplates. So, in my opinion, just installing Plata already is a massive upgrade. Just the default profile from Plata, the way it comes out of the box, that is already a very big upgrade. Because it makes everything a bit more clear. Like you have the cast bars a bit more clear. You have the ability to instantly recolor enemies, which is like, in my opinion, like recoloring enemies is like overpowered. Like being able to see, like for me, for example, I have a very, very basic system. I have like little mobs that like I don't care about, like the little bees or something. They're gray mobs. I don't care. They're gray. Sometimes I make them even smaller with level mode, but whatever. They're just gray. Then casters for me are yellow. Priority mobs are purple. That's it. I don't have like infinite colors. There's like one extra color, like special mob, like a totem or something is pink, but that's about it. So, like, just installing that add-on and having the ability to just recolor mobs and be like, okay, I need to remember to interrupt this mob because he's a caster. And then just doing that is like, you have already a better UI than 90% of other people, because if you use that, that's really cool. And then obviously details as much as people are like, you shouldn't look at your damage too much, blah blah blah. It's kind of wrong because if you look at your damage and you see, I'm doing good damage, that means you just must have just pressed something that was really good, and that's a positive feedback loop in your mind, and you're like, okay, this decision of me using my cooldowns this way and my spells in this order must have been better. And at the same time, if you're doing bad damage, be like, this didn't really work out, I need to work on this. This instant feedback is like something very good, and I'm very surprised they haven't actually made a in-game damage meter yet.
Yeah, details is an interesting one, because I do think it can also at the same time be misleading. Well, I guess the point is that you can have all of the information that's in the world, but if you're not looking at the information logically, then the information is useless. And at that point, I guess, I'm not sure if that is what Blizzard is thinking, but like, for example, at the very start of the MDI, we were actually displaying healing meters. But it was the season where Blood Decay was really OP, and Blood Decay was topping the healing meters quite a lot and did more healing than the healer. And the whole chat of the MDI was all about talking about balancing and how Blood Decay is so broken, heals more than a healer. Why even invite a healer if the Blood Decay is going to heal so much? And people obviously just did not understand that Blood Decay is healing themselves. And the fact that the healer is healing the group. So obviously the Blood Decay is not replacing the healer, because the group would just die, right? And then they disabled the healing meter for the MDI because of that. Because people were just focused so much on that and didn't understand the information properly, right? So I'm thinking that might be the reason why they also don't have details as part of the game. Because again, you can see the information, but if people just see, number one, damage must be the best player, right? Without understanding, there might be padding, there might be useless damage, or, they don't look at the priority target damage, and so on and so on. And then all of a sudden, it's maybe more hurting than it's helping. But you can't really protect the player from that, in my opinion. I think displaying information is always good. And if somebody's reading the information wrong, well, that's not much you can do about it. That's their fault, right?
Yeah, I think this whole, should the damage meter be default or not, is a whole topic for itself. There is also this way that Final Fantasy goes, where if you tell someone, you didn't do that much damage here, blah, 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 you can actually get banned for that, as far as I'm aware. That's against the terms of service there. So that's the whole opposite way. And I don't know if I would like that kind of way in World of Warcraft, but I don't know. There's a lot of ways to use an add-on like details. As pointed out in chat as well, it's not just about damage. You can see, are people actually interrupting? Are people hitting the correct targets? And just having access to that information is already such a big improvement over not having that information. So I think if Blizzard actually wants to replace it, they need to do a lot of work, because if you look at the source code of an add-on like details and Plata, just real quick, that is a lot of programming. Yeah. And if they really want to do that, you better hire some more people, I think.
Nameplates, I guess, would be the one add-on. Would you say it's more important to understand for a player? Because that's one thing that I always think about. What kind of add-ons should people really try to understand so they can set it up themselves? And initially I was always thinking, it might just be weak auras, because the value that you gain for understanding weak auras a little bit and then being able to adjust them when you install a bunch of packs or whatever, and adjusting the position, whatever it looks like, deleting some of them, copying some of them, blah, 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 right? But then I was thinking maybe for M+ in particular, it would actually make more sense to understand Plater a little bit better, or just nameplates in general. What do you think?
I think obviously both have a lot of value, weak auras and Plater. I think for M+ specifically, nameplates are more important. Nameplates, and specifically what you can do with Plater, there is so many things you can do, and it is also the potential is also higher, I think, for nameplate customization which in my opinion has always been also a big problem if you look back in the past. Just remember Star Augur, like this whole connecting friendly nameplates thing with lines. Yeah. The thing where you saw a big circle on your screen, that's the tank, you cannot walk onto it. You saw on Exosus, on Gul'dan. Yeah, there is a lot you can do, like with recoloring, conditional retargeting, recoloring. For example, I tried like 5 different fixate mods for the mines in Motherlode, because I kept dying to these things. And I didn't see what it was on. There was like a line, there's like a fixate text, and I couldn't see what it was on. So I should have just played default UI and it would have been better, right?
Yeah.
And then I spent 2 hours making this fixate thing myself, and now I see a green nameplate. That is a mob that is chasing me, 100%. Because all of these other fixate mods, they would just break if you would look away, and then the nameplate got re-added. There's a lot of edge cases there. And it's infinite potential, and I think this is like something that Blizzard knows about, that this is possible, and they want to curb this potential away. Because if you have a mod and you can see, oh, there's no green nameplate, I'm fine, I can just full AoE here, don't need to sweat, GG. Like, you instantly will do more damage than someone else who doesn't know this and is like constantly afraid, oh, is there a mine, is there a line on me, dodging around, and then maybe they're not pressing the perfect globals. So this is like something that Blizzard needs to look at, I think, and they will. And yeah, just giving us better nameplates, and at least giving us things like recoloring, changing the sizes around, and like some options.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, nameplates, in my opinion, knowing what you can do and tidying them up for yourself at least is very big for M+. But yeah, just knowing how to make simple weak auras as well. Like, I have a very good example if you want to get into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Then that's also really cool. Yeah, I mean, maybe this is the time where I can like Discord share and show the specific example. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, because weak auras is like this. Like, weak aura is probably like the biggest like add-on that has the most possibilities out of all add-ons that exist in World of Warcraft, right? Like, you can literally just do whatever you want with it if you have the understanding. And I mean, obviously a lot of it will be custom coding, but even without custom codes, you can do so much with it nowadays. Nice. Okay, I think we got, we were talking about a little bit, we were talking about more details than what I initially wanted to. So
this happens, I guess.
Yeah, it happens. When it comes to add-ons, I feel like it's very hard to not talk about detailed stuff, right? But one thing I guess we can do now to like zoom out a little bit and make it less detailed is maybe I do actually go and play some keys now if you still have some time to stick around.
Yeah,
and
good time.
you can talk about the dungeon itself as well, of course, in combination with the add-ons and weak auras and what's possible and whatnot. But generally, just like maybe talk about my UI, what I have, what you like think is bad, what do you think could be improved upon, what you personally do differently. Like, I think that would be super interesting. First of all, for me, right? But I think it also would be interesting for people to see. Like, what you see when you look at our UI, you know? I think that would be cool.
Yeah, let's do that. That's fun.
You can roast my UI, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll look at stuff. I'll try to be okay with this.
Oh god, guys, he's gonna rip into my UI. If I get invited to any keys, because I did not upgrade my gear since that turbo boost thingy, so people might be looking at my item level and not invite me.
Oh, chat is saying I should give you the repair weak aura.
I like how I joined a group. It's like, your big wigs is 2 releases out of date.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah.
Wait, one thing I didn't realize, can you actually have the bars be in separate locations for raiding versus M+ or no?
You can have different profiles. I don't know if there's like auto activation profiles.
Yeah, that seems a bit. Yeah. Well, thankfully I'm not raiding anymore, so I don't care about my raiding stuff.
Me neither. I just join once a week, once a season, I guess. Get some loot.
Can I sign in on that one? I want some loot as well.
Oh yeah, one thing that's also really cool. Like this is a record everybody can just import, just straight out of the box. Is really good. Is the M+ timer recorder on the right side of your screen from Relo. That is just a really good recorder. Just install it and it's good.
Oh.
It improves the you have it. It just improves the display. I think you guys even use it in the MDI, right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a really well-made recorder. Very good defaults. I like it.
Yeah. So
the only thing that
just this timer here. You can even change some settings as well. I think to display like the timers differently depending on if you want to see the timer until the 2 chests or 3 chests versus like the whole timer. I think you can change that, right?
One thing that's really interesting about your UI is like what you mentioned earlier with the nameplates, that you just have your dots to the left side. And I think that is like something that's like, it makes sense for Bootcamps. Like for me personally, it wouldn't make sense because I don't have to interact with the nameplates as much when it comes to playing my class. There's a few ways where you have to do that. Like there's some playstyle where you have to like mouse over death coil to keep up a buff on multiple mobs here. But for your case, this is really interesting. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, because I guess if you don't have to click on nameplates in particular, if you just need to see, that's different than if you actually have to interact with them. Yeah.
Exactly. Like you have to mouse over dot a lot on Moonkin for Moonfire and your dots in general. What I see is that your damage meter is taking a lot of real estate of your UI in general.
That is true. Yeah, that is something that I personally, like for example, the healing meter is something that I never displayed, but people on my stream kept asking for it, so at some point I gave in. Usually I only had like damage and overall, like current damage and overall damage. But also like this bottom side of the screen is not really something that I really care about, I guess. So I felt like it's okay.
Yeah, it's alright.
But it's a lot.
Well, one thing that you could maybe improve about the healing meter is that maybe you only care about the first 2 or 3 people that heal. Because like Warlock healing, how important is that really, you know? Like you can check it if you really want to, but
maybe even overall, like, well, the healer is somewhat good to know.
Yeah, small improvement already. I like it.
We're improving the UI as we're playing the perfect.
Yeah, what else? What can we see? Oh, he's doing the strategy in the corner.
Yeah. I hope he also clicks the bombs then. Oh,
yeah,
just kidding, no.
He's not a Vengeance Demon Hunter, so he couldn't actually move it all the way in. It didn't work, sadly.
Oh, you have to like double jump in?
Yeah, like the safest way to do it is to double jump and then also to double vengeful retreat. And then the boss comes all the way in.
Yeah, and just to explain what it does, can you tell people
of
that
course,
special
I can do
position does?
So this is actually I think MDI approved strategy even.
Yeah.
Where they can use it on the tournament realm. And what you do here is that you drag this boss to this pipe position over here. And then if you're a Vengeance Demon Hunter, when the boss knocks you back with the ability that's just happened, the static pulse, you can actually pre-jump in the air and then jump again. And then vengeful retreat and vengeful retreat again with a specific talent. And then because you're up in the air such a long time, because of all of that jumping, the boss actually moves in just a step further. And then the boss is at a very specific position where when he casts the foot bomb launcher, all of the bombs actually spawn inside of him. And then if you use a interact keybind, which the game can give you, you can shoot all of those bombs instantly and gain a lot of uptime of the damage taken increase on the boss. It's a really cool strategy.
Yeah, I was wondering why not everyone does it in the MDI, because that seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, I did the math, and if you do this versus not doing this, I think you gain about 30% overall damage. So I think in the globals, I think
maybe
I would be
because
very
of the
surprised.
spec rule. Maybe because they didn't play Vengeance a lot on like the lower key levels.
Maybe, I think it is possible that the boss moves in on other classes. I think you can use it, maybe do it with the cloak, the rare cloak. But yeah, not doing it on a Vengeance Demon Hunter is, I think, really hard. So could be that. Yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
you're right.
Funny thing about this rapid extractor actually that a lot of people don't know.
Okay.
Especially melee DPS. So the way the extractor works is that he puts circles on the floor, obviously. But like a lot of mechanics like that, the circles are not all the same. There is random circles which go in random places or near players basically. But then there's also circles which go on the tank. And like a lot of people think like, I get chased by circles, but what actually happens is that they're getting chased by the tank, who then puts the circles on the floor. So as a melee DPS, what you can do here is you can just see where's the tank and just stay away from him. And then you're automatically dodging circles because you're not where the tank is.
Okay, I actually did not know that. That is very good info.
Yeah. Especially as a melee DPS, this is like, even in the MDI, I see like melee is just running with the tank. I'm never running with the tank. I'm dodging that guy every time.
Yeah. So here, this the Enrage actually makes the slam also faster, right? Or not? Like this AoE.
This cast?
Circle, yeah.
Yeah, it makes everything faster. It's like haste, like that on NPCs can do some very weird things. Also, the mobs are dead now, but the sappers, when they have the haste and they explode, that can be really fast. You need to be ready for it with movement speed, or knock them or stop their casts. There's something about these mobs actually that a lot of enemies have this problem where when they spawn, they instantly melee. So as a melee DPS specifically, or if you're just a range DPS and they happen to spawn in you, if you're like on top of the boss, you kind of need to be careful to not get this bleed from their melee attacks. It's very rough if you end up getting it. Yeah, one thing I noticed about your UI and a lot of other people's UI is like where you show your AoE stops, you don't really show the beam, but then you show the beam as an interrupt.
Yeah.
Right? For me personally, I like to have it in both places. Actually, as the kick, because sometimes like I want the beam just as a kick. Let's say on a boss like Kultarok in TOP, where sometimes you just need that beam as a kick. But then in like AoE pulls, you kind of want this beam just like as what it is, like a beam, an AoE silence. So I'm looking at the AoE stops for that. So this is like one of the few cases where I actually have tracked the same spell in like multiple places, like this. So
I never even thought of that. That actually makes sense. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I do have to say that like I am actually very bad at looking at this, like this whole thing in general. Like I have it displayed, but the amount of times I look at the cooldowns is actually very little, because I'm always pugging, so I'm never like shot calling. I'm always the one that has the least amount of interrupts to do because I have such a long cooldown on my solar beam. And if I ever, like obviously I do use disrupts as well, with my Incap Roar, with my Typhoon and whatnot. But I feel like I always just wait and see, oh, did everyone else use everything? Then I will use my Incap because I have to go to Bear Form to cast it and it's kind of a hassle. So I'm just waiting for everyone else to have used their stuff first.
Yeah, in the very high-end teams, this is actually a recent development which I've been hoping for a long time. Is you're not gonna like this, but the Moonkin is actually the one that calls all the AoE stops.
I guess it makes sense because the Moonkin does have a lot of AoE stops.
Yeah,
But,
and it's...
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to intrude, but the rotation doesn't seem that hard either, to be honest.
Hey.
Yeah, one thing that I've seen, specifically for when we talk about AoE stops in dungeons, and this is like on my to-do list actually, which I've showed you earlier, is that on specific spells that other players use... Oh, you heard silence. On specific spells that other players use, I would actually like to hear them. So some people have this in their UIs where they hear something like beam or sigil or stun, like text to speech. And if you're doing this kind of short calling role, that can be super helpful to like just hear when people are pressing their spells, and you don't need to like actually double check and look. That can be really, really cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing that I also loved using was, I think it's Arti Suikara, that has like a like any kind of like defensives that you get from other people that are just being like called out loud. So if you have sacrifice on you, it says sacrifice. If you have pain sub, it says pain sub. And I personally like that because otherwise, like if you have a debuff on you or if like a million icons, sometimes you don't even know what the icon looks like because you play almost never with a Mistweaver, and then all of a sudden you get some ability from a Mistweaver and you don't even know like what the icon says. So if it says it out loud, then I feel like you're just more aware of it.
Yeah, for me personally, this is like one of those things where I have a specific sound assigned to that. It's like my external received sound. So it's, for me, it's like the lightsaber sound.
Okay.
That means I got an external. And then obviously I have it visually tracked. If I got sack or pain sub or life cocoon, then I can just see it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense as well. Yeah, I mean, whatever works for you, but
works.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the one thing I'm using as well now, because I installed, I first had the same Uyghurs that you had from Tarathol, and then I installed Mirrors as Uyghurs. And now I have like a million different things that I did go through it and delete a bunch of it, like almost like 80% of it. But I still have the kind of like targeted Uyghur, where like there's something in the middle of my screen if I get targeted by a spell with like a countdown or with a number. And that's something that I think is good once you know what the spell does. But initially I was just confused because I didn't know what the icon looked like. And, like anything on me was just like, oh, there's something on you, but I don't know what it is. So what's the information gonna do if I don't know what the spell does, right?
Yeah, I think that Vigor is super cool, super helpful. I have a variation of that one as well. A big problem with that Vigor, I don't know which version that is exactly you're using, but the version I used initially, it was like from a Chinese creator. It would make a sound on every single ability. Like, even if it was just a small ability, even if a boss add on the Moma boss in Floodgate would just shoot me, it would just do this sound. And I was like really close to deleting this Vigor mid-key. She opened Vigor's mid-key and deleted. So I actually had to like fix all of that and remove most sounds and only put the sounds for the very important ones where I know, okay, if I don't press AMS here, I'm dead in a 20. That's like my thought process there. And then some of these abilities like the Moma add shots, I just removed them completely. I just consider that rate damage. Healer heal.
Yeah, same. I wish healers would heal more often. I'm just kidding. So what I noticed so far is that my UI is almost perfect. Because you haven't said that much, so it must be very good.
I mean, okay, it's first of all, I'm not a Moonkin player, so that whole thing in the middle there, that's it's kind of like I'm not looking at that much. But I feel like from the general layout there is some room for improvement. Like you see, you have like an icon, for example, that shows you, you don't have Starfall up right now. But I don't know. I feel like that could be something that maybe is just like, it only shows when Starfall is actually up. Maybe something like that. But
it's funny because I don't even need this at all. Like, you don't need to know when Starfall is up. I never look at this. I honestly didn't know I have it up until you mentioned it.
There is actually, I know I'm not a Moonkin player, but there is times where you want to know that Starfall is up.
Oh, when
if the tank exactly. If the tank is pulling something and you need to cancel Aura your Starfall so you don't instantly get aggro. In this dungeon as well, with the rats, it can happen. If you have a couple Starfalls up and he's just chaining. I mean, to be honest, that shouldn't really happen that way in like a good route. Like it should just be a fresh pull, let's say.
Yeah.
But you still don't want to die as a Moonkin there, right? So sometimes you just need to know. So it's good to see. Yeah, it's something that's missing on your raid frames, actually. This is like, I consider it missing. Like, not a lot of people have this. But you need to know if people are in combat or not. You don't see that currently.
Oh, that's actually a good point. Yeah, I would like to see that actually. I don't know why I never thought about adding that to my race frames. That's a very good point. One thing that okay, this is like, I guess, I'm not sure if I want to change it, but since I am pagging a lot, and I'm doing this thing where I sometimes just mindlessly pug, you know? Like, I'm not like full on focused, strategizing the route beforehand or whatever, right? So I'm joining this group, I kind of go, and then it actually happens to me quite a few times that I literally forget who the tank is. so somebody will die, and if it's a class that could be the tank, like let's say for example we have a Havoc Demon Hunter and a Prod Warrior, which is unusual to have, right? It's more common to have the Vengeance Demon Hunter. Then if the Demon Hunter dies, in my mind it's like, oh shit, the tank died. And then I'll like rest and do whatever I can to get the person up, and then afterwards like, oh wait, that was just a Havoc Demon Hunter. Because in my raid frame you don't actually see what kind of spec they are, unless you actually look at, you know, the Omnicity underneath where you can see the cooldowns, then you would be able to tell.
Yeah, an easy solution to that could just be spec icons next to the name.
Yeah.
If you would like to
or
do
like
that.
role
like
icons, I guess.
Yeah, not spec icons, role icon. Yeah, that's the one.
Also, like I did import the plater colors from mirrors as well. And I think I'm gonna change it again, because I actually used to play without colors, like completely without colors. Just everything's the same color. Even aggro, I was displaying with the same, like I was not having a color change for. And then I used the mirrors one, and I actually ended up liking it. Like I do think it makes sense, but I think mirrors has too many different colors. Like I think it's just confusing. Like a lot of it doesn't really make sense, or it's not that it doesn't make sense, but it's not relevant for me. Like mobs that have frontals or something, you know, like I don't need to see that. I'm not, I don't really care about that much.
Yeah, what I've noticed with colors in Plater, I'm not sure exactly if it happened to you in this dungeon, I haven't noticed it much, but it can happen, is that I see this, like this is like the number one nameplate thing I actually see, forgot to mention this, is that people have like recolored nameplates, but they don't see if they have aggro.
Yeah.
So
okay, yeah, I don't see that
by default. Yeah, by default, Plater has like different colors for if you have actually aggro on them. If you're like a DPS and you're like basically the thing you're not supposed to have. If you're a DPS and you have threat, it's like a specific color. And then if you're a tank and you don't have threat and it's not a different tank, let's say in raiding, then it's that color as well. It's usually like the default, I think, is red. Right? Red nameplates are usually not good. And if you just recolor and maybe use some scripts to change some stuff, it's very easy to mess this up and not have that functionality. And for me personally, as a melee DPS, if I would play something like Red Parlor even more extreme, not seeing that I have threat is like really bad. This is also a very big shortcoming of the Blizzard nameplates, but there is actually an easy thing to fix this. There is a Plater mod you just install, and it literally goes in front of everything, and it just forces the threat color if it's wrong. So if you have threat as a DPS, it overrides any color you have set to the threat color.
And so that's a mod, like a Plater mod?
Yeah, exactly. You just import it as it's like a recolor, but in Plater, like a small modification, and it just changes some internals around, so that if you have threat and you're not supposed to as a DPS, it uses the Plater threat color that you have set up in the actual Plater add-on.
Nice.
Yeah. This is like, I think every single Plater profile should have this 100%.
Okay, if you have time to do one more key. Also, I'm not holding you hostage. Yeah, if you want to leave, just let me know.
Oh, it's fine. We can
okay.
It's fine, I have time.
Because then I will look for another group, and while I'm looking for the group, I am actually interested to know what your opinion is on like the recent like add-on changes that Ian talked about with Dratnos and Max.
Yeah, that is a big topic. Complicated as well, very complicated.
And let's just focus on like the add-on thing rather than this whole like one button rotation, whatever. Like I think that's
Yeah,
like,
that's a whole
no one
different
cares
thing.
about that, right? But
Yeah. I think there's like an audience for that whole one button rotation hopper thing. I think the idea itself is good, but yeah, whole different thing. The big thing about this whole discussion and what they've said is that I think that Blizzard wants a lot here. They want to do a lot, and I think what they want to do, their track record is not really on their side for getting the players on board to be like, oh yeah, what Blizzard wants to do here is actually a good change. Just to recap, just to keep it short, Blizzard wants to do something about combat add-ons, specifically add-ons that can interact with the combat log in-game. So add-ons that can see buffs, add-on that can see spell cooldowns of friendly players or even enemy players. And they want to have, ideally, all of that functionality that those add-ons bring curbed down, and then some of that functionality just baked into the game. And I think just in general, that whole idea is good, but I think they underestimate the workload of how long it takes. Like, if they really want to make this good and put all of this into the game, like, think about what they need to make. They need to rebuild details. They need to basically rebuild Playter and like make it accessible enough for players. Like, they need to make basically a better Playter, because let's face it, like an add-on like Playter is super complicated. Like, very hard to get into, as we saw earlier. There's a lot of hidden features, but it's like World of Warcraft is a game that is played by a lot of different people, like of all kinds of walks of life and different skill levels from everywhere. And whatever Blizzard makes needs to be good for everyone. And everybody needs to be able to be like, oh, that's very intuitive. Like, this always like has been a strength of World of Warcraft, that it's been very intuitive for players, right? This is why people have come from EverQuest and played World of Warcraft instead. And that's why like all of these WoW killer games that in the past came, they could never win, because World of Warcraft was always like, I don't want to say easier, but easier to get into, right? And to get all of this functionality done and then at the same time slash these add-ons, that is very hard for Blizzard, I think. And
just,
I don't know, they need to show
my understanding
something
here, sorry, about what they want to do, like, because I'm not sure, was he being very specific about this? Because I'm not sure I personally understand what each add-on, like which add-ons would still be working and which ones wouldn't be working. Like what is the functionality they actually want to remove, and how, because in my opinion, the way I thought of it was, oh, it's just gonna remove like certain weaker functionalities, right? And by certain, I mean like quite a lot. And it's gonna remove something like big wix timers and something like that. But I never thought about the fact that it might actually also interfere with details or nameplates.
Yeah, I mean, the latest interview that we got was the PC Gamer interview. And what I could understand from actually reading the interview, like I like to read the interviews directly and not the summaries, because sometimes the summaries are wrong.
Yeah.
Is that, if I understand it correctly, they want to basically break every single combat add-on. Like everything is gone. Like, there will still be weaker most likely for certain things, but if I make a weaker right now, which I just showed you earlier, that shows me when is the time this spell gets applied, like the 5 seconds timer for the damage buff on the boss, that is no longer possible. Like a weak aura that shows me I have a fixate from this mob and it shows me on this nameplate, no longer possible. Like, that's exactly like a specific example Eon said in this interview. So, I mean, we can only go by their words, but if they really want to do this, then all of that functionality really is gone. And it goes further than this even, because like if I interpret this correctly, and they don't want me to have an interrupt tracker, because this is also in the interview, then what they need to do is that in combat, add-ons cannot communicate with each other anymore. This is like something, I don't know if many people talked about this, but right now add-ons can communicate via something called the add-on channel with other players' add-ons. So for example, your details can communicate with the details of another player and then tell you, yeah, your details is out of date, for example.
Okay.
That's one thing. But it can also like do all kinds of stuff. It can synchronize, for example, your focus targets. So you know that someone else has something in focus. Like this is like something you can do. That will not be possible anymore. What also will not be possible anymore is like if you have a debuff and another player has a debuff, and let's say you have 2 world markers assigned, then an add-on cannot tell you anymore, okay, player A go to star, player B go to circle. None of that will be possible anymore. If they actually end up doing this, yeah? So like me reading this is
more
like
impact than I thought it has. I mean,
it is.
Okay, I obviously knew it had a lot of
crazy.
impact, right? But I didn't realize that it would also like affect so many other add-ons outside of like just weak Auras and like big wigs or whatever. Huh. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
One thing that I wanted Blizzard to do for a very long time, which they haven't done, but I mean, if they do this, they will do that thing that I'm going to talk about 100% is auto marking. So in raids specifically, you have like bigwigs sometimes marking ads for like interrupts and whatever. There's very popular auto marker add-ons in M+. I don't like them personally. They have the uses in very few cases, but usually I don't like auto markers. But if they go this route, then auto markers are gone 100% as well. They're just gone.
Okay. That sucks a little, I guess, for more casual players and like pug groups.
Yeah, I mean, personally, even in pug groups, like when I play, I say disable your auto marker. We're using this macro to everybody marks their own focus. I like that personally a lot more. Like, I don't think auto marking personally should be in the game. But then all of these other things that Blizzard is trying, I think some of it goes a bit too far if they don't have adequate replacements. Like, yeah, they can remove like the functionality that details is accumulating damage and like showing it if they have their own version of that. Sure. And they can remove like the ability to track each other's cooldowns and have, based on that, an automatic interrupt rotation tell you when to kick, because I think that's like the core problem that Blizzard is trying to solve. Not just that we can see each other's interrupts. That's like the default thing. What the really high-end groups and the Race to World First groups can do is that they just have the game tell them who is supposed to kick. That's, I think, the big problem.
I do also think, because generally seeing the cooldowns of other interrupts, maybe I don't think that's, especially in such a short cooldown, because how are you supposed to communicate this? Because I think one of the biggest issues we had with private weak auras, right, was that they removed the functionality of creating our weak auras for certain like debuffs and whatnot, but then they created mechanics that need to be resolved so quickly that you cannot really do it any other way other than a weak aura for each personal. Because the only other solution is that a shot caller calls stuff, right? So instead of the private weak aura telling you where to go, the shot caller looks at the raid frame, sees who has the debuff, then assigns people and calls it out on voice comms, which I think is the ideal scenario for a game like this to work, instead of having weak auras or I don't solve it for you, right? But if you have to solve it in 5 seconds, how are you supposed to have the raid leader, first of all, see who has the debuff, then think for a second to figure out who goes where, and then also call it out, and then each player has to also understand it and register it and move there. Like, that's obviously not going to work in 5 seconds, right? And I think you make a good point where if, like, for example, interrupts would be not displayable by any kind of add-on, then how do you communicate interrupts? Because they have an 8-second cooldown, right? It's kind of hard to constantly call out, I have 2 seconds left, I have 1 second left, like, what are you gonna do? It's kind of hard.
Yeah, the way I view this whole thing is like, we had private auras, let's say, yeah? We had private auras, and yeah, looking back at them, didn't go too great. But now their idea is to basically have private everything, because that's essentially what they're doing, right? We have, because if you let add-ons look at cooldowns of spells, then it's fully automatable. Like, you have like solutions in raids where it's like you have a timeline and boss abilities and everything, and the cooldowns of spells, everything is being looked at, and you can automate every single, let's say, impactful cooldown of the whole raid for 20 players, if you wanted to, and script the whole fight that way. And it just, I mean, a lot of that is happening in race first guilds. It even goes down to like top 10 guilds, top 100 guilds, where they just import a set of cooldowns, and the game basically tells you, yeah, you use your AMZ here, you use your AMS there. And none of that would be possible from this anymore, because once you allow add-ons to check the cooldowns of spells or check, like, let's say, the time in fight, then you allow this. Once you allow add-ons to communicate with other add-ons of other players, then you can work your way around this as an add-on developer. So basically they're trying to lock down the whole game, so none of this is possible anymore to like combat this, and that is very scary, I think.
Yeah, and I agree, because at the very start you said like that the thought behind it is a good thought, and that generally speaking, if they would be achieving a world where this is true, where we don't have these add-ons anymore, that would be technically a good world. But looking at the track record of Blizzard when it comes to similar things like this, they haven't quite managed to do this before, right? The private aura issue that we had, generally just UI stuff has been kind of, even just recently when they added this like cooldown tracker, right? Like half the things didn't work properly. You can't customize it. Like, it's just like such a basic thing that didn't work. And then you're wondering, okay, but they have this huge undertaking where their vision, their goal seems good if you would be able to get there. But how are we supposed to get there? And understand, like, I personally am not, like, I don't like being a doomer and be like, oh, well, they're not going to be able to do it, right? Because we don't know that, right? You basically, like, being negative about something that they didn't even try yet, right? Which sucks in a sense. But then I think it's still okay to be worried about it, because, yeah, as you're saying, this is a really big like thing that they're trying to do, and they can't just snap their fingers and do this from today to tomorrow. It actually would have to be like a big thing, so, and a big change, and they have to do it one by one somehow, right? This would have to go over like literal like years. This can't just be done in like a month or two.
Yeah, and like, to be fair, they have acknowledged that, and Eon has said it specifically, that they want to make sure their own systems and their own, let's say, replacements for like plater details and whatnot are working and are in a good state, and then they're gonna rip the band-aid off and make like remove all of this functionality from add-ons. And I think that gives me a little hope that they're doing that, because if I would have to guess, like they said, it will not be coming this expansion, all of this big changes. I don't even think it's gonna come the beginning of next expansion, personally. Like, maybe not even the second patch, this big change where the add-ons cannot do anything anymore. Because there is, I mean, unless they've recently hired like a big team from some other game which really knows their way around World of Warcraft add-ons, which is like, let's say, also a bottomless pit of information and knowledge. They have a lot of work to do.
Okay, so let's move back to this whole which add-ons are like important and which add-ons you need discussion, because we did touch on it at the very start, where we were mentioning how important like nameplates are and weak auras and I guess details and some other add-ons we mentioned. But if you would have to build like a very, very like minimalistic UI where you're a person that's just does not, like, you don't understand a single add-on, you don't know how any of them work, and you're not a coder and you don't know anything about coding, okay? Let's put yourself in that position if you somehow can. And then assume that you want to have a UI, you want to be like the best and class player possible, but you want to minimize the learning that you need to do for these add-ons, right? So which add-ons would you install, and which add-ons would you only use like the basic from, and which add-on would you actually look into it a little bit more to get a better understanding of it? Because some add-ons you can literally just install and they work fine, right? And you don't have to read a book about them or get a PhD in them. But other add-ons you actually, actually. Then there's some other add-ons like Weakers or Plater where you actually need to understand a little bit about it if you want to figure it out yourself and you don't want to like install someone else's like pack.
Yeah, so, yeah, as Ian would say, lots to unpack there. I don't know, it's a hard question to answer, to be honest, because I think for the baseline UI features like your unit frames and your action bars and like the mini map and the chat, I don't think you need any add-ons for those. You can just use the edit mode. So I think that's where you start out. You start out with the edit mode. And then for your class abilities, I mean, you can use the new cooldown manager from Blizzard. I think I would still just use action bars and just move them somewhere. I mean, they kind of do the same thing, and they're better than the cooldown manager. So I would just make a baseline UI with just the edit mode. That's like the first step. Like 0 add-ons, just edit mode. Then I think the next step is just, let's be real, you need details. Until Blizzard has made their own damage meter details, you just install it. The baseline settings are pretty sensible, I think. That's good defaults. You can just use that add-ons. It has a lot of customizability, mainly in the way that things look, not how they function. So that is something you can do, but it works pretty great out of the box. Details.
Yeah.
So that would be the first add-on. Then, in my opinion, the second add-on should just be Plater, and I think out of the box the settings are already great. When you want to change something about Plater, that is where it gets kind of hard, because the customizability of this add-on is, I think, almost even greater than weak auras, and it's definitely more complex and a bit harder to use as well. But again, out of the box, those two add-ons work pretty greatly, pretty great.
So you would use Plater out of the box?
Yes, I have used Plater out of the box when it came out. I was early adopter when that add-on had 1,000 downloads in Legion.
Oh, interesting.
And I just used it out of the box like that, and then, yeah.
I was a KUI nameplate user myself.
Yeah, I actually had KUI for the friendly nameplates. That was awesome. Do you remember when you had friendly nameplates? And there was an option where you could, let's say, okay, a little tangent, but you could have friendly nameplates with class color. Oh my god. That was
true,
crazy.
Yeah.
And then there was an option in that add-on where you could color the individual letters gray if, let's say, 50% of the health was missing of that player.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
The first letters would be the class color, and the last letters would be just gray, and then it's like a pseudo health bar. That was so cool.
That was nice. I remember that.
Yeah. I also used KUI before Plater.
So you used 2 nameplates add-ons?
No, I used it before I went to Plater. And then I wanted this functionality for ages. And then Tercio, the developer of Plater and Details, was about to make it. And I was like, yeah, let's go. And then Blizzard, blue post, friendly nameplates are restricted. Then he dropped it. Yeah, okay, so Plater and Details would be the first 2 logical solutions. And from there, I would just play a little bit, and I think the next step to go from there is weak auras. Mm-hmm. And then that's where your journey really begins. And then I think before you do like big wigs and little wigs, you just get used to, okay, how do I import weak auras? How do I change them, how do I adjust them to my liking, and what is even out there. So Vago.io is a fantastic resource, obviously. Full disclosure, I am with Vago, developer there. But yeah, so those 3 add-ons. And then after that, little wigs and big wigs, and anything else is not really, I mean, obviously MDT, yeah, that's really cool. Anything else apart from that is just
I mean, I would even argue, because you were saying that Plater first, and I guess we're still talking about specifically like M+ players, right? And you were saying like Plater and Details and Weakers and then MDT. And honestly, I think MDT for a new player is probably more useful than Weakers for M+, I think.
Yeah. I can see that. I'm a little bit, because I make the add-on, I like to not often just, say, oh yeah, I just get this add-on, because, that makes you look a certain way. But I can see that. That is like, especially with the component that people link the routes in chat. And if you don't have the add-on, then you cannot see it. So this is like something why I'm not too worried about this whole UI overhaul and like combat add-on thing from Blizzard, because my add-on doesn't really do anything like that. It's basically like a glorified website in game that just shows you a lot of info and like a glorified whiteboard where people can throw together ideas. That was like the whole idea.
Would still work, right?
Of course, yeah, it would still work. I would need to make a small thing where if somebody tries to share a route and they're in combat, it just won't let them, because that will not work anymore. But out of combat, this should all work.
There's a question somebody asked in chat, and I'm just gonna forward the question to you. So somebody said, I don't get all this like thing about the add-ons, like doing them one at a time, you know, because since I asked you, oh, which add-ons would you install, whatever, right? And they're saying they don't get that. Why not just take someone's full UI, like Atrocity or whatever? It has everything you need. So what would you say about that?
I say that is a perfectly fine way to do it. But the initial question was, about someone who's completely new to the game, right? So it's like from their POV. And I really shy away from like giving someone like a full replacement for what is in the game if it's made by someone else that is not Blizzard, because like maybe the creator of the UI hasn't really thought about everything, right? And then sometimes even like on some player profiles, like the thing that we showed for you earlier, like if you import that, you sometimes even lose information. So for example, you lost the information of if you have threat, it shows you specifically. And the default Blizzard nameplates, they do show that. They have like a, I don't know, it's like a red little highlighted border around the nameplates. That means you have threat. And like this baseline information sometimes can get lost. So that's why I shy away a little bit from telling people, just get this whole UI pack and then do that. Like I made a whole feature on the Vargo ecosystem about UI packs for a streamer specific day. And like my UI is there as well, yours is there as well. And that is an option for people, but for a completely new player, I don't know if that is the best one, the best option. It can be, and if you're like, obviously, especially if you're like very fast learner, let's say, and you know, oh, this is how you do this, and you understand how exactly the creator made the choices that I made, and then maybe you adjust into your own liking, it can definitely be a way to go, I think. Perfectly legitimate, but for the initial learning of if you just want to learn World of Warcraft, maybe not the best.
Yeah, another thing that I see sometimes is like there's specifically people that are pretty new to the game, or I'm not even sure if they're new to the game or if they just always played with add-ons. But the amount of times people ask me which add-on is what on my UI. Like people say, oh, what is this above your health bar that displays like the defensives? And anyone that actually knows something about add-ons would immediately be able to tell that that's weak auras, right? Clearly. So there's a bunch of people that literally just install a weak aura, or not a weak aura pack, they'll install a whole UI pack, and they will not understand which thing comes from what. And that will obviously like be a problem. Like, so I think especially as a new player, you should understand where things are from a like normal Blizzard UI standpoint. And then you replace the add-ons like individually rather than installing all at once, because then if something is wrong with your UI or if you want to fix something, then all of a sudden you don't know what is what. It's like, okay, is this Blizzard or is this an add-on? And which add-on is it? And how do I change it? And then, as you said, you're also like losing out on information sometimes as well, because certain content creators or people that make these weaker packs or these add-on packs, they don't like something that Blizzard displays on a standard UI, but so they remove it. But might be useful for the person that is installing it, right? And then they don't even know that it exists in the standard UI because they've never seen it, right? So yeah, there's definitely issues with these like full add-on packs. Obviously, it saves you a lot of time if you install someone's add-on pack and it's perfectly made and it works for you, then that's obviously great and ideal. But I do think that like you need a basic understanding of add-ons, and you need to know what these add-ons are replacing in the basic UI, so you just know what is going on with your, like what you're looking at, right?
Yeah, hey, I'm not saying like all UI packs are bad. Like mine is pretty great. Naguura's is also pretty good.
Those in particular, like
yeah, only those. Yeah, nothing else. Yeah. But yeah.
Why do I not see an interrupt for the decay?
You can have it not spec'd.
There's no shot.
I don't want to say he doesn't have it spec'd, but it is a possibility.
Huh.
There is like a raid build that is popular on like websites like Wowhead or whatever, which doesn't have an interrupt spec'd. So I don't know.
Would they do so much damage then if they would be in that raid spec?
I mean, there is like different. I mean, that interrupt spec is like I don't know. There's like different specs. But you can inspect them. Maybe you can see it. No, he has it spec'd.
He doesn't have it spec'd. Oh.
He does have it spec'd. He does.
Maybe they changed the talents and then my add-on didn't register until I pressed it once.
Yeah, I don't know. What are you using for it? The add-on?
This is Omni-CD. Usually it does show up immediately though.
Yeah, it should pick it up normally. I don't know. Maybe you have them on ignore. Some add-ons don't work when you have them on ignore.
I never ignore anyone, so I doubt that.
No, I doubt it as well. It was really just a joke. But this has happened before in Racehold First Progress. Actually, this has happened on Fallen Avatar. Scribe couldn't see pull timers. And it turns out the mage that he was playing had Roger Brown's character on ignore, so the pull timers were just not being sent.
That's so funny. I had that in a plus too, like in a random pug. The priest was being very strange towards the tank, because he kept saying, "Tank, why no routes?" And the tank had already linked a route and talked about it. And then the tank did a ready check, and then the priest was like, "Well, this is gonna go well. Like, what's your problem?" or whatever. And then we started pulling and we wiped. And then at some point, I had written like, "What's your problem, priest?" Like he linked a route, but like, do you not see it or whatnot? And then it turned out he just had him on ignore.
Yeah, looks like this dungeon is going well with the new UI modifications.
Yeah. We're doing great.
Except for the kick, that's something, I don't know. That's weird. Yeah, I actually have something planned later, so I need to make some food now. So I guess we talked enough.
We definitely had some good talks. Yeah, you are free to go. You are released.
All right, then thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you for chat being so nice with all the questions and stuff. And yeah, hope Naguura farms some high IO. Maybe we can play sometime.
Yeah.
I also have a DH that needs some.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. And I do think that, I mean, I personally learned a lot. I also have improved my UI, and I'm sure people that were watching also learned a lot, so that's very cool. And yeah, thanks for joining. Maybe another time.
Yep, thanks for having. Anytime.
And enjoy your food.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everybody say goodbye to Nnoggie. Make sure you give Nnoggie a follow as well on Twitch. He does stream as well, so definitely check out his stream. Yeah, I do think actually... Oh, there's one question I forgot to ask him. Fuck. I wanted to ask how you remove things that are tracked for the targeted spells, Wikara. Because I tried to look it up earlier, but I didn't quite find it. Like, I looked up this targeted spell Wikara, and it seemed to be like all custom coded and no like options or anything, so... I don't know.